Freddy vs. Jason was released back in 2003 and garnered a massive amount of hype, but for good reason. This showdown was highly sought after since 1987. The premise was even teased at the end of Jason Goes to Hell, which came out in 1993, and was intended to open up doors for a Freddy and Jason crossover. Fast forward to 2003, us horror fans finally got what we wanted. Freddy vs. Jason. I remember seeing it in theaters when I was almost 12 and loved everything about it. I had it on DVD and watched it countless amounts of times. In late 2017, that's when I started this channel. Selected the Friday the 13th franchise as the first one to cover since it was my favorite. Rewatching and analyzing each installment, a couple in which I saw for the first time from start to finish, I latched on to some memorable characters and appreciating the work the actors that portrayed Jason put in. Unfortunately, my mindset on this franchise isn't the same as it was when I was 12 or 13 years old, and I saw many flaws I didn't pick up on. After watching Freddy vs. Jason, now 26 years old, I see one major issue. Ken Kirzinger's portrayal of Jason mixed with Ronnie Yu's direction made me realize this clearly isn't the same Jason. There was lack of personality, charisma, and intimidation behind the mask. He was a lumbering puppet who was made a fool of. The only highlight was his show of aggression and terror during Trey's death sequence. Other than that, his kills were lackluster slashes that were nothing more than just filler to pad the body count. We weren't given this scary freak of nature at all. Let's not forget the utter disrespect he received in the dream sequence, being thrown around like a pinball. This was not my Jason and not okay. This sheer disappointment sparked a thought, which is now the topic of this video. If I were to replace Ken Kirzinger's Jason with a different version from one of the previous installments, would it be a better option than what we got? Taking their kill styles and the tone of their respective movies, would it work with the Freddy vs. Jason premise that will have the same result, with Jason being the protagonist and the victor at the end? The criteria and questions I will ask myself that will guide me to a conclusion are: is he easily manipulated into mind games, like using his mother to treat Jason like a puppet? How will he do in a fight against Freddy in the real world? Could he also be viewed as a protagonist or a sympathetic figure? Here are my choices as which version of Jason would fit in Freddy vs. Jason. Jason from Part 2. I think this will work because at this point he is still undefined as a character, which means Deputy Stubbs would have no prior knowledge of Jason's existence. And the fact that Final Girl Jeannie used her child psychology tactics at the end to lull Jason to get the upper hand. He's on the revenge rampage for his mother's death, so it makes him an ideal target. This also gives Freddy an even more sinister reputation, because if he can manipulate someone so undefined and is in this hostile, revenge-driven mindset, what's stopping Freddy from controlling other people who experience tragedy and are in a similar headspace? He'll be an ideal protagonist since it makes Freddy seem like he preys on the weak and feeble-minded. However, I don't see him being able to put up much of a fight against Freddy. He's still human and was taken out pretty much easily the moment he was slightly distracted at the end. Jason from Part 4. I like this choice since he was presumed dead, but once he comes back he was so much more aggressive and pissed off after taking an axe to the head in Part 3. The kills were much more graphic when compared to previous installments. He will definitely put up more of a fight against Freddy than Part 2's version because of his aggressive nature. He's clearly a man on a mission and won't back down one bit. I see him being a bull in a china shop, which could also end up being his downfall if he's not applying any kind of smart, less aggressive strategy. Roy as Pseudo Jason in Part 5. Going back to the common man approach I mentioned for Part 2, and manipulating someone in an enraged revenge mindset, Roy would be ideal. He took it upon himself to kill any and everyone who had anything to do with his son's death under the Jason guise. Freddy could use that to add more fuel to that fire. Especially since Jason was considered completely dead, people would be in denial that Jason was actually alive, similar to the beliefs in Freddy vs. Jason. Eventually the reveal would be shown in some kind of Scooby-Doo fashion, and the audience would ultimately feel sorry for him because of what he's been through with his son's tragedy and Freddy's influence. But I don't see him putting up much of a fight at all against Freddy. He will definitely try, but I feel like Roy's headspace is too broken and maybe he may give up since he can't mentally deal with what happened to him to focus on the fight. Freddy will definitely dispatch him pretty quickly, especially in the nightmare sequence. Jason from Part 6. Tonally speaking, I feel like this version would be the best fit for this movie. Both films mix horror and comedy, but Part 6, Jason Lives, does it in a way better fashion. A few kills were pretty funny, but Jason wasn't made out to be a part of the joke. You're not laughing at him. You're laughing at the result of something else. In both films, Jason is dead at the beginning. Thing is, if Freddy brings Jason back to life in part 6, someone's gonna have to dig him up. As for a fight, this Jason would absolutely kick Freddy's ass. Freddy did have a speed advantage and smarts to give Ken Kirzinger's version a run for his money, but he was a slow, stupid giant zombie. Even though part 6 Jason is a zombie, he was far from stupid. He seemed much more calculated in his approach, sneaky, and showed some athleticism. Freddy can use his speed all he wants, but once part 6 gets a hold of you, that's it. You're not escaping his grasp. Even if you manage to do so, he's gonna get you by any means necessary. Jason X. This is another installment that matches tonally with Freddy vs. Jason, mix of horror and comedy. Once again, Jason X does a far superior job. I feel like I could root for this version because I remember feeling sort of bad seeing Jason chained up in the beginning after being experimented on, and how he was constantly being executed with different methods, but he just didn't die. Fast forward a little bit when KM actually ended up killing Jason for him to end up being resurrected as Uber Jason, and how the characters in Freddy vs. Jason tried working with Jason by bringing him to Crystal Lake for a home field advantage. I was thinking with the Jason X version, Freddy actually ends up successfully killing him in a nightmare sequence, just completely mutilating his body, tearing it to shreds. To stop Freddy, that's when the crew puts Jason remains on the nanobot table to get his upgrade while hatching a plan to bring Freddy into the real world. Obviously this has to take place on the Grundle, or well, actually on Earth 2. Freddy doesn't stand a chance against Uber Jason though. He literally burned up entering Earth 2's atmosphere and still survived to show up in another film. Freddy would be killed almost instantly, and then Jason will go on to kill everybody else. Friday the 13th reboot. I believe this particular version will give you the best variation of kills when it comes to the creativity. I could see Jason hunting the victims down with an assortment of weapons like he's a hitman. Clearly the most athletic, smartest, and tactical version, he would deliver higher quality fight scenes against Freddy. I'm not talking Bruce Lee vs. Chuck Norris, but it'll still be entertaining. And hell yeah, it can be manipulated. I can root for him. He's clearly a very broken soul. In this rebooted version, he actually witnessed his mother get killed in front of him. He keeps Whitney alive because she looks like his mother. Jason has flashbacks of that night and lashes out, so he is someone you can feel sympathy for. He's been grieving for 2 decades at this point. I would totally give him my condolences and hug him, but I'm sure I'll end up in a bear trap if I come within 2 feet of him. With all that being said, in the comments below, tell me which version you think is the best fit. Or tell me how ridiculous this is because you think Ken Kirzinger did the best job as Jason and you want to 1v1 me on Elm Street next Friday the 13th. If you like this video, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to join the Killer Countdown clan. Just don't go burning any crosses now.